We will now explore cultural practices across East and Southeast Asia and how they will respond to contemporary issues like environmental protection and cultural preservation. This section will be in English. Mr. Tony Sugiata and Dr. Alex Ma will join us online. Ms. Chi Hui Wu is here with us today. Firstly, may we invite Professor Benny Lim, Associate Professor of Practice in Cultural Management and Director of the Master in Cultural Management Program at CUHK to say a few words. Professor Lim, please.
So, all right, thank you so much, for coming. As I mentioned earlier, we are very happy to be part of this conference. And this panel specifically, I think, is a rather special panel. Because this is the panel that is made up of 3 speakers who have also, contributed to another project that Louis, Anna, and myself, we are involved in. So we are currently working on a book project, already contracted by Springer, and about culture and sustainability in East and Southeast Asia. And of course, in the earlier session by which is moderated by Grace. Is focuses on Hong Kong. So this particular session will look outside of Hong Kong, and the 3 speakers they have all contributed papers to this book project. So I think it's also a very good opportunity for for us to get a glimpse into this book project via these 3 presenters. Now let me just very quickly introduce the first speaker. I need to take off my specs. Okay, Mr. Tony Sugiata is the director and curator of AMERT, a Singapore-based textile art gallery dedicated to re-examining Nusantara textile heritage as contemporary piece of art, invoking living, evolving narratives. He curates and produces heritage-based and contemporary textile art exhibitions that ignite discussions on contemporary issues such as cultural appropriation and sustainability in textile productions. So without further ado, the first 2 speakers will be online, and then the final speaker will be on site. So I'll come back again after the first speaker to introduce the next speaker. And also for those who are online, please feel free at any point in time if you want to drop your questions, just drop it in the chat box. I'll look at them during the Q&A session. So without further ado, Tony.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Let me just share my screen. Okay, can everybody see me all right? See the slides all right? And can you hear me? All good?
Yes, all good, all good.
Okay, cool. All right. Yes, so once again, good morning, everybody, and thank you for the invitation for the sharing today. So today I will be talking about the threads of time, sustainability and advocacy through Indonesian textile arts. So why I was embarking on this particular project was because I was asked a lot, like what happened to this traditional textile art? What's the future? What is the regeneration practices that you see among the different textile communities? So I kind of get started on like, first of all, like what is the definition of sustainability? So in the UN definition of sustainability is defined as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own. And this considers a lot on environmental, societal, and economic factors. So it prioritizes efficiency, productivity, and market expansion over cultural meanings. And culture is used as a heritage assets to be preserved and could be instrument for tourism or economic growth. And as I was reading a little bit about it, sort of like different definitions of paradigm of how culture is being incorporated into sustainability. And there are like these three point of views. Culture in sustainability, where culture is the fourth pillar that need to be conserved, maintained, and preserved. Culture for sustainability, in which culture is the mediating role to achieve the other three, the environment, society, and economy. And culture as sustainability, in which culture is the foundation to all the other aims of sustainability. And in my practice, I see like these three different paradigms in like different capacity and different degree to different communities. And that's what I'm going to go through with the three communities that I am working with in different capacity. So first of all, this is Indonesia. So Indonesia is the home for more than 17,000 islands, spanning more than 5,200 kilometers. There are more than 300 languages, and there are 15 items in the list of the intangible cultural heritage, including two that are textile-based, which are batik in central Java, as well as noken from Irian Jaya. So each of these different textiles is kind of like my vehicle in my practice, because each has a local knowledge that is embedded, and they have like strategies to preserve biodiversity, maintain intergenerational cohesion, provide livelihood through different economic activities. But each are also challenged by rapid industrialization, modern consumerism, as well as predatory practices and policies that is being set by the different agencies. So, and I find it interesting because when you are looking at textiles, these are probably like the four different factors that you immediately see forward. So for example, the colors, whether they are synthetic or natural, the pattern, what are being depicted on the textiles, the materials, how do they touch and feel, how's the woven like, and then the technique itself in terms of productions, whether they are machine woven or handmade woven, and the decoration technique through batik, through ikat, or supplementary weave, brocade, and so on. So from these tangible qualities, I would like to invite you into the sharing of like the three different communities that reframes textiles as a media of advocacy, innovation, and collaboration in promoting cultural sustainability. So yeah, the first case study is an organization named Sekar Kawung based in Yogyakarta, and how they are trying to integrate supply chain of local cotton production and local cotton-based textiles. So I got to know Sekar Kawung in the beginning as I was working on Tuban textiles. So Tuban is in east of Java. On the screen is on the top right hand corner. So from the pattern itself, you can see that Tuban, as far as I know, is the only place that does both weaving and batik in the same area. And then as I was digging in through it a little bit more, they actually have their own cotton production, and it's essentially from far to wardrobe. So they harvest cotton, they spin it, they weave it, and then they do batik on it. They do macrame ending and all the different textile techniques that are there. And then there's also presence of both white and brown cotton. And we got to know that there are like different crops that are available as well. There's kind of like in between. And as I was talking to Sekar Kawung, so she did a participatory research project with the community. So starting from these textiles, she kind of like dig out the different potentials in each area. So Tuban is kind of like the center where we started, and then she also has Ngawi that is slightly south west. So in Ngawi, she was sharing, and she found out that they actually used the cotton plant for oil lamp wick. the wick of the oil lamp. So there's a potential of growing cottons over there. So she is trying to start cotton plantations over there as well. Similarly, so she found out that there are natural dyers in Temanggung area and handwoven textiles in Klaten. So she is like trying to link the different players up, and they kind of like fit into each other's supply chain. And she also worked with designers as well as different creatives to perform different activities of advocacy and promotions of the endeavors. And she has like the different network that is outside of Java as well. So she has one in Sungai Utik in Kalimantan as well as in Sumba. So she mapped this value creation on how each different area can add values for the other in order to achieve cotton dependency in Indonesia, because as far as we know, a lot of the cottons are being imported from overseas at the moment. Yeah. So digging a little bit more into the participatory research that she did. So this is one example that she was showing me. So from these textiles, there are actually like different elements. So the first one is the cotton flowers. So the plant are cotton. So that's kind of like to suggest that there are some species. So other than cotton, there are like banana flowers that's being represented in the textile. So she was digging a little bit more, thinking that there might be something significant that people commemorate it as a textile pattern. And then the Chiling and the Phoenix is kind of like showing the relationship, as Tuban used to be a thriving trading port. So there are a lot of like different influences from different areas as well. So she is depending on these collective memories of the communities and digging out like different stories and different things on how they use the land. So she found out that they actually has permaculture regenerative practices as well, alternating cotton and other cash crops like maize and peanuts to regenerate the land. So those are the practices that she is like trying to revive back, because these are the knowledge that has been passed down from different generations as well. And with that, she collaborates with a lot of like different players as well. So on the left here, she works with a spinning factory to spin the cotton fibers itself and come up with like different weaves that might be easier to use, like machine woven textiles to be supplied to like the different areas. And she also with a research lab when she was doing the purifying of the brown and white cotton, as well as the mapping of biodiversity in the different areas that they are working with. And then in the middle, she is working with fashion designers to promote the idea of slow fashion and how it linked to all the different initiatives that she has. And on the right here is the projects that I was working with Sekar Kawung in terms of a curatorial presentation. So we combine both heritage textiles together with the works of contemporary artists, exploring the culture, the materiality, as well as the community of Tuban textiles. So these formats kind of like engages different audiences and kind of like attract different conversations as well. And then from Java, we move to Molo in the west of Timor, on how the weavers there are using textiles as a way to protect their communities. So yeah, so this is to show a little map of where Molo is. And they have a local saying where it's translated where water is blood, forest is hair, earth is flesh, and stones are bones. So this is showing the close relationship in which people have with their environment. So the forests provide food, they provide medicine, and of course the dye plants. And from the textiles itself, you can see the different dye plants that are gathered from the forest. And as I mentioned earlier, similarly, patterns or motif would be something that they are commemorating in terms of their closeness to the animals and plants and their environment. And hence, to destroy the land, which means they are destroying themselves. In the 1980s, actually, there's permits that were issued for local governments to allow marble mining in West Timor. And it leads to landslide and water pollution, and that gives a whole lot of trouble. And in early 2000s, led by Aleta Baun, this lady on the left with the red headgear, she led about 150 women to silently sit on top of Mount Mutis, and they weave. It's kind of like silent protest against the destructive endeavors of the mining companies. And it received a lot of like media attention, and succumbing to the pressure, they succeeded in shutting down the different mining operations in West Timor. So this act of weaving, kind of like metaphorically to say they are wrapping around the marble, around the cars, protecting them with care and not by confrontation. And another interesting thing is when the protest was happening, a lot of the men were helping with the household chores at home. So the so-called like gender roles in like traditional man-women relationship is kind of like redefined a little bit, and it is to them it's like very important for women to take charge because it emphasizes their role as the custodians of culture and ecology, and emphasizes the interdependence of different genders and different individuals in sustaining livelihood without a particular job labor division. Yeah. And at the moment, Aleta Baun established Aleta Baun Fund to groom the future leaders of West Timor. So she started the weaving school, which kids can go to after school. And there were, other than the technical skills of weaving, they also teach like different soft skills that support the weaving production. Uh, Although there are challenges because they are located in West Timor, they are challenged by the limited access to the market as well as to the information as well. And in terms of a value creation constraint to increase the economic potential or values of the textiles that they created. And she also worked with the different communities to map their forests as a preemptive measures to assert land rights against future commercial threats. And there's one case earlier this year where the forest was actually, there's a change of status by the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, and they changed the status of the forest into a national park to allow tourism development instead of the protected and reserved area for the people. But in the end, they overruled the policy, and they still can keep their forest and land. And in the third case study, is the work of contemporary artists and the Balinese weavers in terms of giving awareness of this global sustainability discussions in the in the rest of the world. Sorry. Yeah. So Ari Bayu Aji was inspired when he was walking along Sanur Beach, and he saw this trash that was being brushed out to the shoreline. And during COVID in 2020s, he has like this fascination that this trashes in terms of like nylon strings from the fishing nets, it come into one being with all the different trees that are along the shores. So like this this combination kind of like fascinates him on how the organic and inorganic like fuse together, and that's when he was like starting to work along environmental sustainability awareness, and he worked with different weavers at that time because Balinese tourisms are pretty much greatly affected. So the weavers are also like out of job, and then they collaborated together, and he get the weavers as well as the communities to sift out all the different materials and weave them into tapestries of quote unquote plastic cloth, and presented it as a piece of artwork weaving the oceans alongside with like the different materials that he found as he was like wrecking the beaches. Yeah, so it's kind of like a new material explorations done on ATBM, alat tenun bukan mesin, which is a non-mechanized loom. Yeah, and he establishes this artisans collaboration partnership in which the local weaver can contribute their skills and gain incomes, and as well as opportunity to extend their craft. And for Ari himself, it kind of like grounded him in his practice so as to gain the cultural depth in his work. Of course, with this kind of partnerships, we have to care about that both collaborators maintain their equal creative agencies, and it's not of like exploitative dynamics, and to reduce heritage into an exoticized resources. And what I like about his work, he also is embracing these cultural values, and the duality is very much embedded in a lot of like Balinese practices and rituals. The duality or raw bineda of light and dark, old and new, and that's kind of like being explored in his artwork as well. And yeah, so within the ocean, the project has been exhibited internationally to merge both ecological activism, heritage practices, and contemporary art. I'm not sure if some of the audience here recognizes the Gajah Mina, the one on the left, that was exhibited in CHAT, the Center of Heritage and Textiles in Hong Kong earlier this year. So this screenshot is from the exhibition in Hong Kong. So going back to reading textiles, so from this color, pattern, materials, and technique, there are actually a lot of like different subtexts that we can explore when talking about cultures and how they are working with the different elements to promote sustainability. I was like trying to draw a mind map to link the different factors to like the different techniques, but it's just like so interspersed that it can get confusing. So, but yes, so other than the main pillar of economic, environment, and socials, there are like different areas that you can visibly see and dig into a little bit more through the four main ideas that we set forth in terms of like textile, like tangible factors. Yeah. And with that, where culture stands with sustainability is kind of like, it is integral. There's not so much whether they're one above the other, but it's just factors that need to be evaluated as a whole holistically. And these textiles is a living heritage, and they are very adaptive. They make use of local knowledge and the wisdom that is being passed down from different generations, and they adapted it as times and technologies come into play to preserve biodiversity, maintain intergenerational relationship cohesions, and economic livelihoods. And these indigenous and local wisdoms are actually an alternative sustainable pathways, as it connects ecological cycles, social relations, symbolic meanings, artistic expressions. So they're all embedded into their daily life as well. And as demonstrated, art actually helps in understanding this interdependency of culture and sustainability. And hopefully we can converse a little bit more through all these different presentations. And with that, I would like to thank you for hearing to my stories, and especially thank you all the different collaborators for me to have the honor of sharing their stories and wisdom to you guys today. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Tony. Thank you so much for sharing three very interesting case studies. And I think this morning, I was having a conversation, with Ivy. Where's Ivy? Here. Okay, sorry. And then we were talking about some realities, right, in the context of Southeast Asia. And I think one sentence, particularly stood out in the talk. Destroying the land is destroying themselves. Yeah, so they have to do everything they can to protect the land that they are in. And this is really not just about meeting current needs or meeting future generation needs. It's already crisis at the door. Yeah. So thank you very much for sharing the three case studies, and of course being the academic. I also like to throw out some thinking points before I introduce the next speaker. I think there are a lot of different stakeholders involved. So of course we also have to think about the power relations between these different people, the workers. Yeah, especially I see that a lot of these local workers are female. So also we talk like Qi Hui, I think later her presentation will also focus on female laborers. So the idea of of power relations, the idea of whether sustainability is somewhat gendered as well. I think it's something that we can think about moving forward during our Q&A. Without further ado, I will introduce our second speaker, Dr. Alex Ma. Okay, sorry. All right, so Dr. Ma, let me just do a quick introduction. Of course, Alex is, I've known Alex for a couple of years now, and Alex is currently an associate professor of creative producing at the Sidney Poitier New American Film School at the Arizona State University, and the interim associate director of the Media and Immersive Experience Center, the MIX Center, a world-class creative technology facilities with over $100 million in investments at the Arizona State University. And he's also an adjunct associate professor at the Academy of Interdisciplinary Studies at the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. And as a multifaceted scholar practitioner, Dr. Ma has more than a decade of professional expertise in the creative industry, particularly in creative producing, with over 8 years of service within the international film production division of Warner Brothers. And Alex, research and teaching interest lies at the intersection of creative content, business, and technology, while his practical experience spans film, entertainment, games, virtual reality, art program curation, and event planning. Dr. Ma has secured research funding from competitive international, national, and regional programs, and has published in leading international venues. So without further ado, Alex.
Thank you, Professor Lim. Thank you for your introduction. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure of sharing here. My research is titled as Promoting Green Production in China, a pathway to sustainability through studio complexes. Before I jump into my research, I just want to highlight that ASU, Arizona State University, ranked number 6 according to Times Higher Education ranking for sustainability, and we are the only U.S. institution made it top 50. So the MIX Center is this wonderful facility. Recently, we just had the hackathon event, lasted for 4 days, but basically participants could choose game, experience design, interactive design, or startup design to address civic questions like sustainability as well as healthcare, right? So one of winning project is this Arizona Water Project 2030. So we just within 2.5 days, they created this immersive recreation of how the dry riverbed look like, and what happens like if the Colorado River, which is the main source of water for the state of Arizona and many other states nearby, dries out. Right. So we are at the forefront of interdisciplinary arts. So that's what I'm talking about. The Tech for Change Remix Future. That's the hackathon event. I just mentioned this is a winning project, an immersive experience created just within 2 days. Like when you step in, you are in the dried riverbed of the Colorado River. So speak of my research, right? This is a cultural event I think everybody would know about, right? Very recently. And when we talk about who should be responsible for incident like this, right? It seems like in East Asia and Southeast culture, we refer to government officials. And it is not novelty, right? Now it's 2025. 20 years ago, when director Chen Kai-go was shooting The Promise, had a similar incident like at the shooting site of the film. And it's the same Chinese government, like trying to crack down those inappropriate behaviors when you are making cultural content productions. So green production, which actually refers to sustainable practices in filmmaking or television content creation, screen product, right? It's a rather foreign concept from the West. This is initiated by the Producers Guild of America. So I want to put it into a context of East and Southeast Asia and investigate what's the awareness as well as what are those barriers of adaptation. So as a result, it's a combined survey and semi-structured in-depth interviews. So both quantitative and qualitative data collected. So there's very limited industry awareness, almost non-financial incentives, and very vague regulatory guidelines. So those are main reasons hindering our practice, at least for screen content productions. As mitigation, we should promote more collaborative initiatives, produce and provide targeted incentives, as well as more regulatory frameworks that will help guide through the process. As a result, I would argue studio production complex, right? Those production studios, sound stages, all together with post-production facilities, they should serve as an integrator for all those awareness, training, incentive, receiving and redistribution, as well as reinforcement of government regulations. So there are 3 parts: a general introduction about green production and the method and results, as well as a discussion. Green production. As you could tell, this is a research conducted by United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. So audio-visual production here, the yellow line, right? It ranks number 4 for all creative economies. And the top 3 are software, research and development, advertising, market research, and architecture. I don't understand why they categorize that way. However, you could see there's interaction between advertising and the audiovisual production as well. Needless to say, audiovisual is a significant contributor to the creative economy. So what about film specifically? Making a film, those are diagrams showing how significant the emissions are like per feature film. If that's a tentpole film, meaning like it's below the line, the pure production budget, it's over $70 million US. That equals over 11 one-way trips from Earth to the Moon. So it's very significant. And breakdown by housing, air travel, fuel, utilities, electricity use, and all that. To address that, like I mentioned, Producers Guild of America, they introduced the Green Production Guide, right? Like also there's a Sustainable Entertainment Alliance, including members are all major leaders in the industry, from Universal to Paramount, Amazon, Netflix, and so forth. In UK, the British Academy of Film and Television Arts, like they have a subsidiary called Albert, which is certifying and consulting agency to promote green production practices. And in Europe, like for instance, European Film Commission networks, like they have a dedicated resource highlighting different film commissions that engagement in sustainable filming. Not only in the industry, right? Like it also taps into students and education. For instance, this is something called the Green Film School Alliance. ASU is also part of it. That includes like over 50 chapters and like 13 international programs included. So it's at rather forefront about like mitigating all those high carbon emissions in the screen production industry. So how about East and Southeast Asia, China specifically, because according to earlier prediction, and it actually achieved, especially during the pandemic, China's box office already surpassed the United States, right? And it's very important. So my research is centered around those 6 research questions. The awareness, what are the current practices? What are the barriers of adaptation? What factors are perceived as most effective? What are those greatest opportunities, and which segments in the supply chain stand to benefit most if there's any incentive? Many survey questions adapted from the Green Supplier Survey conducted in UK and supplemented by in-depth interviews to provide further insight. So this is the first chart I want to show, right? Like out of 139 survey reaches, 64 actually completed the survey, and over 32 of them, they have over 15 years of experience, and over 67, they have over 11 years of experience. So those are really decision makers in China's film and television industry. However, over 70 of them never encountered the concept of green production or sustainable filmmaking at all. And more shockingly, there's 0% of them like heard about it in school education or industry training. So just like the 2 news pieces I showed earlier, right? Like for Cai Guoqiang's the work recently, or dating back to 20 years ago when Chen Kaige had the damagement about the local natural resource while filming The Promise. Not much have changed. Further, there's a comparative study that's the same question asked both Chinese respondents and the UK respondents about challenges faced in adopting environmentally friendly practices. So lack of awareness, once again, ranked number 4 in all those barriers, in addition to financial constraints, lack of industry guidance, lack of time. Those are top 3. That's all the same, but number 4 is lack of awareness. Then ask about factors encouraging environmental friendly behaviors, right? Of course, support, guidance, incentives, those are highlighted similarly in Chinese respondent as well. However, government incentives rank at top. Almost all of those respondents agree to this. And there are still 3.3% of the respondent answered none incentives would encourage environmentally friendly practice. So another question when I ask about supply chain, right? Like which segment of the entire film, television, or screen production supply chain would benefit most and would contribute most to advanced green production? Here's a very interesting kind of a divide. While there's more agree that the film crew or film production crew they will benefit most if there's any incentive. Over 60% believe those complexes, those sound stages, and production centers will provide the greatest opportunity to achieve green production. Normally, we would think they should be the same, right? Whoever contribute most should get the most benefit, and we should investigate why. Like all those respondents have such a divided opinion. So in order to investigate further, we have semi-constructed in-depth interviews from management of 3 different studio complexes in Beijing, Qingdao, and Xiangshan, Zhejiang. So they all mentioned LED lights that they have adopted, which are energy saving compared to metal bulb lights, right? And they all mentioned like scene production pieces like those ones, right? They are major source of pollution because those are made by forms, they are not environment friendly, and once it's done, they are teared apart and go to the dumpster straightly. Also, it is very interesting to mention, right? Like China has already committed to the emission neutral goals nationwide and have set those centers as well as trading centers. However, so if a studio complex, like they made a contribution, for instance, changing their power grid, changing their infrastructure, switch fuel-based vehicles to electronic vehicles, those emission contributions are not part of those carbon trade centers. So whatever they do are not recognized, at least by those environmental administrative agencies. So there's a gap between the national goal set as well as cultural sectors and their practice. They are not incentivized and not even recognized at this point. So as a general result, right, like they all mentioned they need clear directives from both state film and the television administrations as well as the local government, because not all of managers from studio complex understand about the local emission goals and the policies and the benefits available. And for barriers to adaptation, there's no government incentives or subsidies, right? And because filmmaking, as many other art practices, they are very specialized. So it is very difficult to standardize the sustainable practice, especially for production design, just as I mentioned earlier. In terms of supply chain consideration, they provide a very insightful feedback that the respondents of the survey believes like the film production crew, they would benefit most, probably because what they do is most visible and measurable. Whereas like for studio complex, when they adopt eco-friendly infrastructure upgrades, right, those are more invisible. So they are further hindered from doing that because there's no incentive or motivation. So could studio complex as an integrator, right, from government directions, monetary incentives, as well as improvement of awareness. So both the quantitative and qualitative studies, they largely converged, right? There's a general lack of awareness, there's limited incentives, unclear direction, and insufficient resource. So there's need for greater integration among government agencies and industry suppliers. Adopting institutional theory and business ecosystem theories as a framework of this research. So there's a lack of institutional pressure, right? Nobody's doing it, so I don't care. Government is not asking for it, and there's no market demand. Why should we do it, right? And then there's interconnectedness, and the collaboration should be encouraged in order to achieve sustainable practice. Last but not least, right, like to summarize, like we definitely need to create specific incentives for adapting sustainable practice for film and television content production industry, and provide clear guidelines and resources, fostering collaborations and coordination, taking those studio complex as the integrator, because film production crews, they practice their content creation efforts there, right? Also, like studio, they are the major interfacing agencies to government and administrative directions about eco-friendly practices. Last but not least, they are a major player of connecting both upstream of the supply chain for those content suppliers, as well as the lower streams distributors. So in conclusions, we should look into specific incentives targeted at studio complex, as well as utilize them as integrator to reinforce green production practices. Thank you very much. This is my presentation.
Right, thank you so much, Alex, for your presentation and for sharing your research. Really appreciate it. And of course, just a very quick, takeaway. I think this is also a very important, wake-up call, for Anna, maybe for Anna and myself, who are representing like institutions, Hong Kong APA and also Chinese U, that we need to do more in education, because just now we see that the zero, the survey shows zero in education in terms of such awareness. Now, maybe just one question to think about, moving forward before we go to the last speaker. Which is about, again, there's this idea of, mediation of different stakeholders, right? The integrators and, mediators. Again, I'm concerned about, power, relations and who benefits, who loses out in the process. And of course, depending on government policy, to start is a very good start, but how long? And, how sustainable? Or would it be, over-reliance on government policy is also something. If the incentives stop one day, is that gonna, is everything going back to zero? So these are also questions I'm very keen to explore, later on. So let me introduce our last speaker, Qi Hui, Wu Qi Hui, and let me just, sorry, time down. Okay. So Ms. Wu Qi Hui is currently a PhD candidate, in my department, a PhD candidate in culture studies, at the Department of Culture and Religious Studies, specifically the Division of Culture Studies at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. She graduated with an MFA degree in documentary media arts from the Northwestern University and an MPhil degree from the Department of Sociology at the University of Hong Kong. Now, she's a documentary filmmaker and a teacher based in Guangzhou. And in 2020, in collaboration with Jimmy Galston, I might be wrong in the pronunciation, sorry, National Vocational School in Qinghai, she co-founded the Tibetan Ecological Film Youth Training Center and the first welfare film training program in Tibetan areas. Her thesis project investigates Tibet responses to environmental degradation through cinema, music, and community activism, as well as the intricate relationship between humans and non-human beings as understood by Tibetans. So without further ado, Qi Hui, but just before that, I know this is the last speaker, and this is right before lunch. But this is by no intention that her topic is on waste. But you will see that how waste can be made into something so beautiful and nice as well. Yeah. So over to you, Qi Hui.
Hello, everyone. Where's the PPT? Okay. So my name is Qi Hui. So this presentation is based on my past 8 years fieldwork and NGO involvement with Tibetan community. So my presentation will have 4 parts. The first part is why dung is not dirt in pastoral lands. The second part talk about the time in pastoral land, and the third part is about the purification ethics. And then I will conclude by talking about Cai Guoqiang's piece again. So first we talk about the classical definition of waste in anthropology came from Margaret Douglas, and she said that actually there's nothing called dirt in its sense. It's become dirt only it plays in the wrong place or it disrupt the social systems. So similarly, the Tibetan also understand, they call it jakpa, which means pollution. it's actually a disruption of social order. So, for instance, a lot of Han tourists, they travel to Tibetan areas, they will with nice jacket and nice boots, but they left the land with a lot of trash. So now a Tibetan will think this is Drakpa. And when they think that the Han tourists did not feel enough respect for their deities in the land, so that will cause a Drakpa, for instance. So the cosmic pollution that I mention here will be further addressed in the third and fourth part of my presentation. So first we have to understand what is Dhamma, like why Dhamma is associated with women's labor. So we look at the chart, it outlines men and women's labor in a day, and then we see the orange highlights like the women's activity due with dhammas, including collecting them, processing them, drying them, and also making them into a wall. And then these are the tools that the women use. This is actually from Inner Mongolia. And then you see the Tibetan women, they actually use similar tools. And then in the winter, the dams, gets really frozen, and it is hard as a brick, so that they can pile them into a wall and to store them better, because that will be waterproof. So based on my fieldwork, I will ask them like how to categorize different dams and like what's your activity in different seasons. And so they basically, I was told that there's two types of dam. One is called green dam, because the yak, they eat so many green grass. So when you burn this kind of dam, the flame becomes really big, but it cannot last for too long. And then the other type is called fine yak dam, which is in the winter and autumn, the grass gets yellow. So when the yak eat a lot of yellow grass, the flames actually is not very big when you burn it, but it can last for so long. So they really like this kind of dam in the winter. So this is a different activity happen during the winter. In the winter, they can make this dam wall, this beautiful dam wall. First, they have to make it in a round dam and then pile it up. And we use some wet dam to make the shapes of the wall. And then in the summer, they don't make wall, but they just layer out these dams into a very thin, flat shape, so that it can better to be dry in a few days. And if they have house, they will put it in the wall of the house. I don't think we have time for this, so maybe I'll jump a little bit. Also, I was part of this kind of community video training when I was an NGO member. Basically, I was sent to different pastoral land to teach the nomad to make films about their lives. So that's maybe just what we will have to move on. Sorry. So I want to talk a little about time here. Actually, I think the French philosophers have proposed like the concept of fluidity, and then he rejects the idea of time as discrete units of past, present, and the future. And then he said that actually there's a multi-directional temporality in time, and they can interweave or interact with each other. So this is actually what I find better captured by this dam art. Because, for instance, you make a dam wall, actually it's an assemblage of different dams that was collected in different seasons, and that was with different level of processing. And then you see this art piece is about like placing this dam with industrial metal as background to make this contrast. So there's a more interesting piece is made by this Inner Mongolia artist called Shinata. And then she talked about her experiences, especially bodily experiences of time in nomadic eras as a woman with another artist called Lamu. So she said that time on grassland exists as a continuous whole, not measured down to the exact minutes and seconds like the city. So in the city, we're always pushed by time. And then we cannot do something with a long duration of time because we are interrupted by different things. But in the grassland, that kind of experience is quite different. You can just take a whole unit of time to just take a cup of tea, or you go out and milk the yak. It's a whole unit of time. That's what she's saying here. And then the lamb will respond to that, saying that on the grassland, you are situated within a vast natural space-time, and you must coexist with other living beings. And objects share the same temporal sphere. For instance, if you go out to milk the yak, you cannot push the yak that much. You have to, appreciate their temporality as well. So this is a piece about, can I play it? Okay, so this is a piece done by Shineta. It's called Duration. We'll watch a little bit. So at first, she worked with some nomadic women. This is a wool flat. And then the things on the center is actually the bottom structure of Kazakh yurt, 蒙古包嘅頂上嗰個結構. And then she just lay out this thing, and she moved in a circle. Maybe just watch a little bit. Okay, so in these videos, actually, it shows different seasons. In the summer, she used these wool flats and they laid out in the circle. And then in the early autumn, she used, actually, this is some ashes. When you burn it, the remaining ashes. And then she moved in the circle. And then in the late autumn, she used stones. And then again, move in a circle. And in the winter, she just used a stick to write in the snow. And she goes further, actually, in the winter. So actually, why she moved in a circle? And that is very important time concept in Kazakhstan, and also I think in Tibetan era as well. It has to do with how they experience time in a fluid circular migration, because you move from one summer pastoral land to autumn and to winter and back to this is a wheel of life that they understood. And also, in a grassland, because it's so big, and then your house is like an anchor, and then you just move around your house to do different activities. So that's also why they think time is in a circulation. And most deeply, I did not put it here, is because they are all Tibetan Buddhism. So in Tibetan Buddhism, they think about the Dharma wheel. So we are, as human, we come to the earth, get birth and die, and then go to the bridal, the intermediate stage, and then go back to be a human again. So this is also a wheel. Okay, so in the third part, I will talk about purification ethics, which is also very important in Dhamma culture. This woman is my friend, and she will use the remains of the burned down. It became ashes, and then she sprayed it in the livestock pen to just sanction the lands. And then the film that we did not have time to watch, actually is made by this nomad. His name is Lamzi, and then he made a film called Yakdam. So actually, I was a part of this kind of NGO that we train. We give them a short workshop for 3 to 7 days, and then send them back to their home, and then they start making films. And after half a year or a year, we come back and look at their footage and help them to edit a film. So actually, Lamze made a very famous Yakdam documentary called Yakdam, and the director's statement is quite poetic. So I want to draw your attention to this. In a sense, Yakdam is indispensable to us plateau dwellers. Yet we are moving even closer to a life without Yakdam. Such days will represent our self-abandonment. bringing disaster to our lives and mark our transition into adversary of nature. When that time comes, our compassion, understanding of karma, and inherent kindness will all fade away from our lives. So I want you to draw attention to these kind of human and matter bonds. Like why these nomads have this auspicious, even positive feeling about them. Like why is that so important? Another research actually carried out by this anthropology about how Tibetans understand their relationship with environments. And he gave a framework of mutuality of ethics. So this framework suggests that sustainability is achieved not through human management alone, but through the active interconnected relationships between spirits, animal, the land, and the natural elements. So basically what Tibetans understand their relationship with these environments are in a reciprocal care, mutual care. So here I want to draw your attention to the cosmic order that I just mentioned. So we see, so human and the demon, we all belong to, so imagine this is like a mountain. It's a sacred mountain. So there's a external space, which is quite big. And then we and the demons, animals, we belong to the external space. And then they have an internal space, which just gets smaller. And then this Lu, which is water spirits, and the Nian, which is mountain deity, they belong to the internal space. And then there's a higher sacred space, which is belong to the Ha, which is the transcendent deities, like Buddhist deities. They belong to the Ha. So this is a hierarchy cosmology. And then every sacred mountain, they will have like a line called Regak, which means this line, we cannot, as human, we cannot cross this line. We will interfere with the deities. So how do we human and pastoralists to communicate with this upper realm, like the deity? It's through this kind of purification ritual called Zang, which is very commonly seen in pastoral land, like every day in the morning or every events like this. In the beginning, we will have this kind of Zang rituals. So they burn dung, they use dung to burn incense, like barley, samba, butter, teas, and this fragrant smoke is the way that we communicate with the deity, and we use this fragrant smoke to please them, and they are happy, and then they give us, empowerment or blessings. So for Tibetan pastoralists, sustainability is not a more than technical goal or waste management, but a state achieved by sustaining a cosmic order through daily and ritual practices. So go back to Cai Guoqiang's piece. So a lot of discussion on his pollution by claiming that he used chemical, fireworks, and they left a lot of physical trash, and the noise and the fire might kill the animals, etc. So as I just mentioned, the biggest problem of his work is actually disrupt of the cosmic order that I just mentioned. So pollution is not like hygiene, a modern concept of hygiene. So what I want to add to how we understand sustainability in arts is that we should also avoid doing cosmic pollution, especially in lands where the indigenous thinks that they have a lot of deities and non-human beings. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Maybe we can have a Q&A. I think we will have two other speakers on Zoom. Yeah. Qi Hui, please. Hello. Hi, Lei Ho. Okay. All right, thank you. Like first and foremost, since I responded slightly to the other two speakers, maybe I could respond to Qi Hui's as well. So thank you very much, for sharing, this presentation and talking about the idea of cosmic pollution, yeah, which I think is already greater than what we talk about the world that we understand or that we live in, and and also to introduce the temporal dimension into this discussion, because I feel that there's a lot of relation to the earlier speaker as well. Now I'm just going to be a bit selfish, and I'm going to start with one or two questions first, then before I hand over to the audience. So before that, can Alex and Tony hear me very clearly? Yes, great. All right. So I just want to bring in what you inspire me about time. That sustainability is, all three presentations, actually sustainability is not just about the resources, the materials, or the technology, but there is also a time element, within it. So I think, Tony talked about slow fashion, right? And of course, for yours it's very clear already, the everyday, production, and then also the different cycles that you mentioned. But of course, for production as well, right? Film production, there's a strong element of time as well, yeah? So, how does time, yeah, in your opinion, whether it is the time that we are used to, or the time in different cultural contexts, or seasonal time, I think that's also related to textiles, and also industrial time in the context of making films. How does time play a role or determine the possibility or the impossibility of sustainability? Just want to hear your thoughts about it. Like anyone can start first.
Well, if no one else, I can start. So specifically, I think for commercial purpose-driven content production, time is money, right? So like as evidenced in the surveys, both for UK respondent as well as Chinese respondent, which I conduct, like there's one option, there's no time to adapt. And also there's an option for them to choose from, like the client's requirement does not allow so. So I guess efficiency versus equity, that's always a dilemma, I think, in every area, right? Like that's why I would suggest the institutional pressure. I think what Qi Hui described, for instance, in Tibetan culture, it's an institutional pressure for indigenous people there to believe how they should treat the nature. It's a common knowledge, but the invaders, like Cai Guoqiang's piece, invaded not only the cosmic like a balance, right, created pollution, but they don't respect the existing sense of time, as well as resource, as well as the relationship for individuals to the general environment. So I guess it's about what kind of institutional pressure we create. So back to my first point, in a commercial world, time is money, and that's the institutional pressure that we all have.
Tony or Qi Hui, you want to say something about it?
Hi. Okay, so I can go first. Yeah, I do think that in urban areas in Hong Kong, like as a PhD student, the time that I experience goes a lot faster than as an ethnographer in Tibetan areas. And when I was doing my film, like documentary films, I start to appreciate the temporality of the locals. And that actually helped me to digest the anxieties and a lot of stress that I have from other part of my life.
Just your study.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Tony,
Yes, I
Do
think
you
I
have any
do have.
thoughts about?
Yes, I do have a similar experience as Qi Hui in a way that uh, living in Singapore, a lot of it is productivity, being efficient, as Alex was mentioning earlier. As you work with all these textile practitioners, as they are doing their practices, yeah, so it's all about being present uh, of all the different steps that they do and how they're observing nature. Because, like, for example, like dye chemistry, for example, that depends a lot on like the environment. So that's kind of like they're observing this, that we kind of like over reliance on tools and technology sometimes. And as you mentioned earlier, the promotion of slow fashion versus um, the current fast fashion trends too. So there's like no seasonality because they are uh yeah, so they are working with all these different natural elements and environments, and that they do not have a kind of like forced uh, seasons like in a lot of like uh, Western fashion ideologies to have like spring, summer collection, fall, winter collections. So they are not pretty much pressured by time. So I feel it's like a very interesting dynamics in which I'm working here with the audience as well as with the practitioners themselves. And yeah, there's a very interesting question that you brought up about time.
All right, thank you so much. I just have one more question. I think this is maybe more for Alex and Qi Hui. But Tony, if you have some thoughts, feel free to jump in. And also, this is for the audience to consider. Now, I'm going to play the devil's advocate a little bit, but this is not my point of view, yeah? I'm just going to play the devil advocate. Because both of you mentioned Cai Guoqiang, right, the work, which is a big thing these days. So if we really use environmental sustainability as the value framework for judging the arts, are we actually restricting freedom of expression by the artist? I mean, the artist wants to create, like this. So is there a problem? Or are we using a kind of lens to look at the artist's work, and is that then in a way taking away that kind of freedom of expression that we always talk about? This is not my point of view, yeah?
It's okay. And I think it could be easily resolved. It is not ethical. When we talk about freedom of speech or freedom of thought, you also should consider ethic, right? Which is very important, like within our Department of Religious and Cultural Studies, right? So sustainability should be considered ethical practice. And that's why we should advocate for that. So freedom is never free. There always comes with certain sacrifice, certain regulation, so you can achieve a status of free, right? So the self-restraint of ethics, that is also the not free component of freedom.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think as Alex mentioned, that there's a films took place in Tibetan land called The Promise, and actually caused a lot of destruction. Also, Cai Guoqiang's piece, and on a fragile land that takes maybe thousands, hundreds years to recover, and this kind of consequence is always paid by the local instead of the outside artists. And I think capitalism can destroy any kind of rules and ethics. So if we want to be responsible humans, that we should appreciate our cosmic order and then to think about like what's in the larger picture of life. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Now, any questions from the audience? Oh, yeah. Yes, Tony, please.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. So I think like similarly in like textile productions, a lot of it like you are going and into somebody's home. So that's why I feel that it kind of like it has to be part of the considerations when you are planning your creative works. And similarly, as I have artists and designers who came to work with textile quote unquote traditional textiles, I would encourage this kind of like back and forth creative discussions versus just the artists or the designers having like a certain ideas that they want the makers to what do you call it, commission just a simple commission pieces, which is kind of like not the ideal world that we are trying to promote.
Thank you. And yes, Ivy.
I really echo a lot to what all the speakers just mentioned, because my work is closely tied with the value of climate justice. I mean, like hearing about the nature-based solutions or the indigenous wisdoms that you have shared about, I just feel like, do you see a challenge to really promote those kind of indigenous wisdom to be widely adapted instead of being like a so flat? Because like there has been a lot of discussions about how to, really put the indigenous wisdoms or some of the, local wisdoms to be widely adapted. But I can see like in a lot of examples, it becomes like a so flat, showing that, it's doing great, but what's the next step? Is it going to be, promoted to elsewhere? And just like what Alex mentioned, there's quite a lack of incentive when you talk about efficiency, cost effectiveness, and then it turns out to be a lot of things becoming like intangible heritage examples that, they're doing great and let's preserve it, conserve it, but it's not becoming something practical and adaptative. So I wonder, like, if in your experiences, are there any things that you see more encouraging?
Yeah, I think this is a very good question. I was thinking about not beyond what I talk about here. Actually, there's a lot of, for instance, climbing and tourism happening in these areas, and then always, Han or someone have richer urban going there and spend our lecture time there. So I think to talk about indigenous cosmology, firstly, we can remind ourselves as an urban dweller, like what's our responsibility and ethics when we consume these areas. And secondly, because I carry long-term fieldwork, I witnessed the change of pastoral land and how the younger generation, they already lost the kind of respect that or reciprocal relationship with the environments that they are in because of education or urbanization or small videos promoting urban dwellers' lifestyle. So it's because of this kind of responsibility that I think as a researcher, we should talk about it in this kind of situation and let more people to discover it and maybe participate in how we can bring indigenous wisdom to our life. Yeah, I think that's an ongoing process. Yeah.
Yeah. I also want to contribute that I just want to also contribute that it's not until I started to work on this book project that I get acquainted to the institutional theory, because just like the question Benny asked earlier, right? Like, what if there's no more incentive? Are we creating more problem? I think it is about creating an institutional pressure, making everyone start to realize this is the right thing to do. Think about like recycling in Hong Kong or in Singapore. That was reinforced because of like a significant fines if you violate that. It was in place when like, they take away those trash cans on the street. So you have to recycle yourself, right? Without those policies in place, you cannot just trust the people, they will do it voluntarily. You need to create motivation, whether through incentive or further regulation. Also, this kind of institutional pressure exists in indigenous culture recognition. For instance, here in the United States, I'm in the state of Arizona, right? For government agencies and the public universities, we recognize the land we occupy, right? It's called like a land acknowledgement, right? Like we recognize those lands of indigenous people like Hohoka or like Apache, like all that. So of course it starts with ceremonial, but when you repeatedly practice, it becomes a norm for people living there as part of their life to consistently being reminded you are not the only resident of this space, right? Similarly, like for tourists traveling in Tibet and all that, they should become repetitively reminded about them being guests, and their proper practice are expected.
Thank you, Alex. And how about Tony? Do you have any thoughts about the question?
I'm just thinking that yeah, there should be like a balance between the two, like in terms of encouraging this kind of I agree with the institutionalized pressure, because a lot of things is a lot of it are, what is the word, is groundwork initiatives that is kind of like a long way to go in terms of like government policies and organizations that have like their own agenda coming in, but a lot of like on the ground initiatives that kind of like, yeah, having that conversation, negotiations, and kind of like come up with a balance that works for all different parties that are kind of like yeah, we are like getting a lot of discussions recently, so there's kind of like that openness that is encouraging, I think.
Right, thank you. Are there any other questions from the audience? Feel free. Yes.
Interesting sharing, and probably we're talking about how to scale up the impact, right? Right. So may I ask the diffuse speakers? So any ideas? If you are the minister on culture, what will you do? Simple question. Thank you.
I can start. Yeah, there are several simple measurements, right? Like according to my survey and interview, there are national overarching policy about, you know, emission neutral, but they are not like specified in each industry, right? Current guidelines are focusing on energy, manufacturing. They are not looking at culture and arts, right? Like, so for academia can work together with government agencies, right? Like when they are not looking, we can provide suggestions, right? We would suggest for filmmaking, like for every kilowatts energy they saved, that can go to the carbon trading platform. There's just no guideline yet. You are not putting more money. You are not like investing more infrastructure. You are just creating a mechanism can allow existing infrastructure flow between each other. So I guess this is also why we are doing this. And this is also why, what Benny mentioned earlier, we should educate our students, at least being aware of such concept and the practice available, as well as the toolbox we are developing so we can progress.
Yeah, I can. Actually, I was thinking about, actually the national policy has responded to indigenous requests. For instance, the mountain Kawagabo, which is one of the sacred mountains in Tibetan land, was banned in 1990s, that nobody can climb it. And thinking about Himalaya, how many people have climbed it? It's still very commercial tourism to Himalaya. So because of the biggest mountain tragedy has happened in climbing Kawakabo, and there's one survivor, he's a Japanese, and he returned to this mountain after this event happened 20 years. He go back. Why he go back? Because he want to bring all the crops all the remains of his teammates back to Japan. During this process, he slowly learned that, actually, you guys Tibetan are why you don't like us to climb, and he even go on circumambulation the mountain with the pilgrimage. So it's a process that I think everybody could draw attention to this indigenous wisdom and start taking it, become your part of your life.
And Tony.
Yes, with that, a lot of things, I think with a lot of education and awareness from the ground up, I think there's kind of like a chicken and egg problem. Like there will not be policies if there's not enough pressures from the ground, but also like the ground is like driving all of like these different initiatives and innovations that kind of like put a pressure for them to establish a particular framework. And in my personal experience, a lot of like this education and awareness kind of like have to be adjusted to like the different groups in terms of how, and I touch a lot on like interactivity, simplicity of languages that kind of like get people more involved. Yeah, so that's.
All right, thank you. I think we are already approaching 1 o'clock, which is our lunch time. So I think I will not take any further questions. But of course, Qi Hui is still around if you want to talk to her, privately. And I also want to thank the 3 speakers, and please join me to thank the 3 speakers. And I think that the feedback will be crucial also, because we are still in the process of improving the papers. Yeah, so feel free, if you have any thoughts and comments, feel free to talk to Qi Hui, and also, of course, to reach out to Tony and also to Alex. So thank you. Have a good lunch. I'll hand over to the MC.